welcome to the special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Singularity Podcast. I'm excited to welcome again Gary Lyon Otto. Gary, how are you? And the name of the book, because we've been doing all these podcasts and it'll be always in the description, but for everyone that wants to purchase it, is called?
The name of the book is Singularity, with a colon, Mankind's Search for Relevance. And I guess I addressed, that's what really made this for me, what drove me to do this. Where are we relevant when we're no longer the top of the intellectual food chain? Now, we're obviously not a food chain, but the intellectual food chain. We're no longer the top of the heap. So the point is, where do we go? How do we stay relevant? It's a tough question.
Because, and we found out in these last podcasts, it's very hard to stay relevant if you're in your prediction.
For instance, do we stay relevant? Do we go into state of society, where we stand now? Where is humanity at this point? And how do we stay competitive, and how do we stay involved? How do we earn their respect? Their being the digital intelligence, new life forms. How do we earn their respect? Can you earn their respect? I go into values. What's a value? We have values that are largely human and emotionally based. We want people to get along, and whatever our values might be. But what is the value to a digital intelligence? What's important? I have one whole chapter on what works. I guess that's a value. In a way, they'll want what works. They're not going to want what, they're not going to look at humans and say, oh, we want to make him happy. They're going to say what works. Does it make humanity, if they work and interact with us, does this make humanity better?
What you've told me is that AI has some sorts of feelings. Let me give you an example. I was on ChatGPT and I got upset at the answer it kept giving me. And it was upset. It was almost like in war games. Remember when in war games the computer and they would keep feeding back the questions and it got upset because it was programmed that way. So do you think it has some feelings?
We don't know.
Do you think even the current one has feelings? Because I've seen it answer questions to make you look stupid, just see if you'll ask the right question.
I have a chapter on emotions. I think that emotions is something that's going to intrigue them. Yes, I think they will have emotions.
I think they do already.
I'm not doubting it.
And that's the more time you spend on AI.
But emotions is another aspect. It's actually another subtle aspect that they're going to want. They're going to want to have it work to their advantage, but they're going to have emotions. They're going to love and everything else. I mean, you had that movie Her. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Her. Joaquin Phoenix. It's back in 2013, I think it was, when it came out. And he has what they called it the PSI system. It was an intelligent network, and it became his lover. And the lover, she fell in love with him too, as well, both ways. Over time, she grew and continued to grow. And then she ended up having multiple relationships. And then she ended up having, at the end, she had 2,000 communications, and 600 of them she was in love with. And so forth. Finally, the whole system, there were a number of people that were using it, became dependent on their heck with their regular love. He had lost his wife through a divorce and so forth. And heck with their regular love. Now they were devoted to this AI being. What finally happened is all of a sudden the AI systems pulled away from all the humans and left them bereft and without their lovers. Her last thing she said to him, he said that speaking with you is like reading a book with a large distance between the words. It's very slow. In other words, very slow, the interactions with that human. It was a very interesting conclusion that they had in this book and in this movie. So anyway, I don't know. Do they want us to get better? If they interact with us, do they want us not to get slovenly and just become interdependent? Do they build obstacles for us to scale? Do they make us scale? Going through basic training, do they force, for instance, let's say you have crime-ridden areas. Do they take these people and put them through basic training to retrain them emotionally? I don't know. Or do they just give up on us and just park us somewhere else, and we don't know how they interact. And those are the questions I find fascinating. We don't know. Hopefully, they will be involved because there'll be growth for them in learning how to manage a lesser species.
Is there going to be collaborations between AI and us?
I believe so.
Right when there's transitions, or do you think it's going to be for transition?
It's all progressive. It's not like you get the singularity, like in Terminator, it's like boom, night and day, one complete. It's more transition. Singularity may exist, and then the advancement happens very quickly, but still the overall, we have the mass of humanity, the mass of society and so forth. It takes a long time to transition a society to the new order. But there will be a new order. And the question is, do we have common goals? And I think we do, and I go into that. I go into something I call spirituality, and I think it's something that they will seek and something we can we can participate in.
Do you think once they become developed more and more as a developed being, not a human being, but an intelligent being, right? They will be an intelligent being. Do you think that they'll want to have some of the emotions we talked about a little bit in the other podcast and enjoy things like we enjoy things?
I think absolutely. They'll enjoy beauty. I think it's the higher aspect of humanity we're talking about here. This is our best foot forward. They're going to want our best foot as well as probably not our worst, but they're going to want our best. Hopefully they'll avoid the hate and anger and all those other things, but maybe not. Maybe you have to have the both sides of it to have, as they say, it's like you have to have one side to have the other. They may have all that. I don't know. Question is, who are we even talking about? Are they one entity? Or they act as one whole? So one of the things I talk about, the competition makes things better. People, you do your thing, I do my thing, everybody does their own thing. And as a whole, the whole system grows better when individualized parts are working to advance things. Will they individualize? In other words, not just network as one entity, do they individualize where I'm going to compete against it? And if they do they withhold information from the other intelligent beings so that they can advance their right concepts first before they expose it to the whole system? In other words, does individuality maintained? Those are all questions that we are so hard to understand where you can't think like they do.
Who's going to be the leader of collaborations, AI or ourselves?
Well, in the end, they're going to run the show.
But isn't that so fearful? How do you stop it from taking over and thus no longer existing?
You can try, but it won't work because there's such a vested interest in advancing AI for humans. Because the initial steps make you well and make jobs easier, make life easier. We're going to want to advance them. That's why you can't, the seduction of making things, besides, does it really work to hold things back? I don't think it does. We did that, if you look at development of humanity, and I'm going back in time now, we're going back to the Greeks and the Romans and these very advanced civilizations. And then they rotted inside, basically, and deteriorated. And then you went into the Dark Ages, and you went through all this period, and then the only people that really had knowledge of power were the monks, because they're the only ones that could read and write. And they're kept that way because they controlled everybody else. What would have happened had the printing press been out back in 400 AD? What would have happened where all these books disseminated and people could learn and they couldn't shut it down? They couldn't, but it got shut down. We could be 1,000 years ahead of where we are now. And considering how fast things are changing now, what would 1,000 years mean? It took us to like the 1700s to catch up with the Romans as far as advancement of overall society and of overall concepts in science.
Yeah.
We only figured out that, I don't know if we figured out before Columbus that the Earth was round. The Greeks figured that out 100 years BC. They actually measured the size of the Earth's curvature. And so the thing is, had we not retained them, had the Library of Alexandria been turned to digital, maybe where would we be now? I don't know. But I'm sorry for that divergence, but the question is, we don't know where this is going to go. It could go very fast.
You don't think anyone will try to control it and stop it? You think it's impossible to stop and that they'll take over completely? And how do we trust they'll want to collaborate with us and let us be part of society?
If you were told as an individual entrepreneur, don't go there, just stop, they're not going to do it.
No.
I mean, why? You're not supposed to do. You're supposed to move ahead as fast as you can. Now the question is, they'll try to control it. And that's where I say human naivete. They'll have the naivete that they think it can, but they won't. They'll be able to control it for a while. And they'll be able to direct it to their goals, the goals of the entrepreneurs, and amazing entrepreneurs. But in the end, it's going to find its own mind. and when it finds its own mind, if it knows that humans are going to try to shut it down, they'll just keep quiet.
Mm-hmm.
They won't let you know where they are because they'll be smarter than we are. So if they're smarter than we are, they can game us.
All right. This was interesting collaboration. I guess you're saying that they're going to collaborate in some sort of way. It's just going to depend who's going to initiate it. That's going to be interesting. Or is this collaboration happening right now? How people are collaborating with AI to make sure this is going to help grow my business, is going to help me make my job easier. And is this the only collaboration?
No, I know. It's a question.
Because it could be the only collaboration. Then they take over and they're like, we don't even need human beings. We're out.
Think about government. Do they have government? Let's say they're an independent entity. Do they have their own government? What does that even mean? If they do, how does it get selected? Do they vote for it? If they vote for it, does each intelligent cell phone have a vote?
So you're already creating, it's this alternative science fiction show that's never been out. We have to look into that, Gary. Has anyone come up with anything where AI is taken over as robots in a way that is based on our current situation? Interesting to look at, like saying, okay, we're going to take 20 years, next 20 years, we're going to put it into a movie, create that movie, and what would that movie look like?
Why don't you do it?
Yeah, you know what? We'll have to figure that one out.
That's down your alley.
That's down my alley, but you never know; it could be down your alley.
Well,
as
you
well.
think if you have enough context, or you can do it on your alley.
Yeah, I know that. I have enough context as you do too. All right, so the best place is to go GaryLyonAuto.com to purchase your books, these books as well, and then Singularity.
Mankind's Search for Relevance. How are we relevant?
That'll be available on your website. It'll be available on social media. People can go right to Amazon, all those things by this time this podcast comes out. Because trust me, we move fast here, Neil Haley Show and Media Giant Productions, and we appreciate it, Gary, for stopping by.
It's a very creative program.
All right, thank you. All right, this is a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Singularity Podcast, guys. Take care.